So I'm here with Sundaran, who just went 6-0 at the Mega Challenge with exactly what?
I went 6-0 with Sacred Piece that we built in a hotel room at like 1 a.m. with just like a bunch of random stuff from my binder, basically. And I went 6-0, and then I got an oversized giant card I sold immediately, and that was quite fun. And like this deck actually performed very well. I went 6-0. I only won 2 die rolls with like a deck that's supposed to be FTK and supposed to be bad going second, but I basically like toured like most of my opponents, and I think the only one that I didn't tour was my last opponent in the final round. And yeah, without further ado, I'll just get into a doc profile. So if anyone doesn't know the Sacred Beast, I'll start off with like the main one. So we play Tree Hamon. So he's like your main starter. So what he does is that he has an effect that like all of the new Sacred Beast share, where like you reveal him, you had either a spell, a monster, or a trap. In this case, like he adds a Sacred Beast spell, and then on resolution you discard a card. So what he usually ends up adding is like he ends up adding like most of your spells that like start the deck's main plays, like usually like a field spell or like a continuous spell or like the spell that's like broken that adds 3 discards too. So he's very important. It's also very important that he's a thunder monster that activates in the hand, and I'm sure a lot of you know why that is important. Then for this, also one of our main starters is we play three. He's similar to Hamon, where like he has basically like the same effect, where instead of adding a spell, he adds a Sacred Beast monster. And the main thing to do with him is that he will just like add Hamon, and then Hamon will add the spell, and you basically like go from like the same cover from there. And important to note though is that like when these guys hit the field, they also have like some hidden effects that come up during games. For example, this Hamon, when he hits the field and an opponent's monster is sent from anywhere, like field or deck, to like the graveyard, they take 1,000 damage. And this is like only once per turn, but it comes up. And the other thing that comes up is that when this guy gets destroyed for any reason, like even if like you destroy him, you take no damage for the rest of the turn, which makes it actually like really hard for your opponent to kill you, which is like comes up. And Raviel, on the other hand, he has a really cool effect that actually came up in one game against a Kultun opponent, where if you tribute, if he's on field, you can like quick effect during the main phase, tribute 2 other sacred beasts, and just like destroy all monsters on the field, which is like really good against Kill 2 because like they don't have bodies to synchro with, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, these are like your 2 main starters, but they aren't like your best starter. Your best starter will come a bit later. Then we play the one of Uriah, and this is like the one that isn't a starter because all he does is that he adds the Sacred Beast trap. And what the trap does is that it's basically just like a negate, basically. It's usually like a negate, you'll get to see it later, but that's what he usually adds. He has a second target in this deck that most people don't play, and I wouldn't play it myself, but because we were just making this at like 1 a.m. in a hotel room, I was just like, yeah, fuck it, let's just like put that in. And he has another like funny effect on field where like if he's on field, he can once per turn target a spell trap on the field, pop it, and that sounds really really bad, like MST tier levels of bad. But the catch is that like if you activate the effect, neither player can respond to that effect's activation. So you can basically go summon Uriah, turn player priority, target a card on field, pop it, and if your opponent tries to like chain like prayers, super poly, or like even like mind shuffle, you can just go nope, pop it because neither of us can respond and they can't do anything about it, which is kind of funny. I actually caught a lot of people off guard with this. And then we play Tyler, Tyler the Creator. So what he does basically is that he's the best. He's basically like the best card in the deck because what he does is that he has 3 effects and they're all like kind of like broken. So in your hand you can like reveal him, and then you can like discard a card on resolution, summon any of these guys, basically any of these guys from your hand. So like if you open like this plus him, you can just like unbrick yourself and get a guy on field. And he has another effect. When he hits the graveyard, you can like basically banish him from the graveyard to revive one of your guys from graveyards. And that's pretty nice because it means that, like, let's say, for example, you open a hand with, like, these 2. You could go effect, reveal yourself, discard him, summon him, and then if you have another one in graveyard, you can just go effect, banish, summon him, and now you have, like, 2 guys on board. And that's usually, like, enough for game. Usually what happens is that like you have to summon defense because this starts to like summon for defense, but then you can like overlay for rank 10 and that's like really broken. And then the other effect, he has like an effect on field like the rest of them, and the effect on field is like pretty similar. You just like discard a card, revive any sacred beast from your graveyard. Just has to be sure that like you didn't like revive one that you discarded because he has that sort of limitation for some reason. But other thing important to note, he's a thunder and he also activates in hand. I think we all know why that's important. And then we play rest of the engine 3 of this. And this is also like kind of like a starter. It's like 1/5 card combo starter, and it's a bit of a weird one. So what this guy does is that on normal summon, this guy basically places either a Sacred Beast field spell or a Sacred Beast continuous spell or trap. And that doesn't really say much, but the continuous spell basically like is a starter on its own right that places the field spell on its own. So it's basically like an extra type of consistency. But the most important effect is that like if you control one of these guys on field while you control this guy can basically like summon these two from hand, deck, or graveyard basically. So it's basically a way to get more bodies, and getting all three of these guys in rotation is important for like the link combos that they'll talk about later. And then we play one of your main win cons, which is the Spell Canceller as your monster. And you do a bunch of link combos like get it in graveyard and summon it later. It's something very similar to like what the Light and Darkness deck is doing nowadays with like the Zen and stuff. So there's not much to say here. It's just like Spell Canceller. And then for the important bit, which is like the spell that Hamon searches, the most important one, we play 3 of Sacred Beasts released. So this spell is really important because it basically reads add 3 Sacred Beast monsters, discard 2 cards. And that is really, really good for obvious reasons, because you just add any 3 of like these guys and you just like fix up your hand. And you often add like a combination of like this and like this and this, and because like these all search each other, and that's it. And if this resolves, you usually like even play it like true draw. Like that happened to me today, where like I used this as my first action, got 3, discarded 2, I got drawled, and I still made like the full board through it. So it's very important that like this resolves. And another thing is that this card is also like follow up, because during the next turn after you use this card, like if it's in the graveyard, you can just like banish it and it just adds any of like these big guys. So that's important to remember. And then we have some of the weirder cards, which are like 3 Thunderclap. So this card is really weird because it doesn't do anything on its own, but it's still very important. So what it does is that you activate it, and when you activate it, you can use the effect, which places 2 other copies of itself from deck, graveyard, or hand. And now that sounds weird, but the reason it does that is because if it does this effect, you can also optionally reveal a level 10 Sacred Beast from your hand. And if you do that, you get to place these field spell from deck. And what this field spell is like the heart and soul of the deck in terms of like functionality, because what this does is that it's a retrain of the Fallen Paradise that like the Sacred Beast used to play. So what it does is that...
Would you say it's almost like a card of the soul?
Yeah, it is very much a card of the soul. Perhaps a card that maybe we should have even considered playing, but sadly we did not find. But yeah, so you place this, and the gimmick of this field spell is that you can send up to 3 times 3 cards of the same type. So 3 spells, 3 monsters, 3 traps, that all works. So you send these cards, and in exchange for sending those, you get to summon any Sacred Beast monster. So usually one of the big guys. And an extra reward for that, the guy that you summon is also unaffected by spell and trap effects, which is really cool, because going second, what I was usually doing is that I was summoning these big guys, and my opponent usually had something like, a Fallen the Virtuous or like a Super Poly, and if they didn't use it on the field spell and they tried using it on this guy, I'd be like, I remind them, hey, this guy's unaffected, so you can't do that, and they'd be like, oh, I just like OTK them after that, which is like kind of funny. But the other gimmick of this guy is that if you control a level 10, you can just like draw 2, similar to like the original Fallen Paradise, which is like pretty cool. But yeah, like the gimmick of these continuous spells is just like get the field spell rotations and just have extra material to like send back. And the other important gimmick of this one is that if it's in the graveyard, during your opponent's end phase, this will one of these copies will always come back to your hand as like kind of like follow up, which is like kind of cool. And then another thing about the field spell is that because it's so important to your deck, even though it's like not a start on its own and like kind of a brick sometimes, I chose to play 2 just in case in case they banish 1 or it gets like sent out of rotation, I still have a way to like access my deck's main game plan. And then for the traps, we played this one. So Uriah usually searches this one, and this is like your most important trap. So what it does is that it summons a Sacred Beast monster from hand or graveyard. Then if you control at least 2 or more whose original level are 10, so basically like any of the OG guys like Hamon, Raviel, and Uriah. Usually just these 2, to be honest. Yeah. If you control any of these 2, this will like negate a card on the field and destroy it, which is obviously like really good. But the extra effect is that you can like use the graveyard effect to like banish itself, and during the opponent's turn or like your turn, you can just like fusion summon a phantasmal fusion monster by using materials from like hand or field, and usually that's gonna turn out to be spoiler alert, it's gonna turn out to be like this big guy. So that's important to keep in mind. It's a good way to like get a good half board to like Fualos or like Perulia, so that's important to keep in mind. And this is your best trap by far. Now, the other trap that most people don't play, for good reason, is this one. And we chose to play this one because we did not have Card of the Soul in this deck. Card of the Soul, for those who do not know, is a card that adds a monster from your deck to your hand with attack and defense equal to your total life points. So, one thing to note is that Hamon has exactly 4,000 attack, 4,000 defense, and so does Raviel. So it means that like if you have 8,000 life points, you can add these two with Card of the Soul. But because we don't have it, we couldn't play it. So what did we choose to play instead? We chose to play this trap that no one plays. And what does this trap do? So this trap is similar to the spell here, except that it's a trap, so it's objectively worse. And the other thing about this is that it can only activate in main phase initially. So in the main phase, it does the same thing as this. It just places 2 other copies of this from hand, deck, or graveyard. And then during any phase, you can just like send all 3 copies to like do a Book of Moon on a random monster. And during the end phase, it goes back to the bottom of the deck just as like follow up. And people don't play the trap for obvious reasons. It's very slow. Going second, like you hate seeing a trap in your hand, and a Book of Moon as a disruption isn't like that good in the current format. Like it's only good against like Kill Toon, and even then like not by much. So why did we play it? We just played it because we didn't have Card of Soul and thought it would be funny. And shout out though this trap because in my final game at round 6, I bricked, and the trap is the only reason I won that game. So. And then now we go into like non-engine. So this deck, the way we built it, it had room for like around 16 to 17 non-engine. So like around that level of non-engine, and because of that, I felt like I couldn't play like a pure hand trap approach like Kiltoon because we just don't have the non-engine space for that. And at the same time, I don't think I could play like a full breaker approach like Sky Strike or something, because I feel like you still need like some level of hand traps because like your engine isn't that insane at cracking boards. So what I decided to play, like compromise for that, was just like main deck 6 Charmings. And this sounds like the type of stuff where like, you know, combo decks, they just like main deck Charming because they can't go second. But in this deck specifically, I feel there's like a bit of synergy because of this card, the field spell. And why do I feel that's important? Because if I went first and I have the field spell, what usually happens is that I can send, for example, like 3 Fualos. If I open 3 Fualos, I can literally send 3 Fualos and get into a Hamon, which is like kind of funny because like that still like gets you to like place. And because one thing you remember is that like in this deck, all of your cards discard. So when you go Hamon to add a spell, at the end of resolution you have to discard. So having useless discards in this deck is actually like kind of like worthwhile. So that ended up working out, and like going second, I was always like full Perulian people, and going first, I was just like discarding these cards for like useful stuff. And also, these guys being monsters is important because of a certain Link monster that we play in the deck. And then for the rest of the engine, we just played Super Poly, Broken. This card single-handedly won me going second in Skulltune. Like they look at this card, they like try to make a half board, but then you just crack it anyway because like they don't have many ways to play around it, especially when it's paired with Fallen the Virtuous. Like, if you open these 2 cards and the Kiltoon player looks at your hand, they're just like, well, what do I do now? Like, there's very little they can do unless it's like involves opening non-engine, and I truly feel for them as someone who plays for Kiltoon because it's very hard to like play around both of these cards at the same time. And then for the rest of the non-engine, I played 1 Talons because it's broken. It's also like a draw 2 if you need engine, and then 3 Ash. Ash is the weakest non-engine you have, but like if you're going first, like ashing a Fua or like a Perulia feels nice, of course, but also like sometimes if you just like use Ash as a breaker, it's just like Asher, like KT Synchro, something like that. And also like some hand traps, like having at least like 1 hand trap like Ash, like I think it feels fine. Like it was also like the most we could do with like our current limitation of like having like a bunch of stuff in our bind and all that. And that's the main deck. And for the extra deck, we played, of course, Diffusion, which is like really cool art, really cool effect. I really like this card. Never summoned it once though.
Yeah.
And the reason I didn't summon it is because there's no need to. Like, if most of the time if you make your end board, people just like either scoop immediately, or if it gets cracked, usually there's like very little chance of like just getting summoned. And The closest I came to summon this card came going second, but my opponent like drew, and like there was no need to summon this card anyway.
Mm. It's crazy how you can also like contact use this guy.
Wait, you can? Didn't know that? What the fuck? Wait, you can, yeah. Oh my god. And then the other important fusion, probably like more important than this one, sadly, is the Colossus. That's why I was saying that like it's important that we have all these tandem effects to activate in hand. Colossus is pretty much like one of the strongest advantages of this deck. Like just having the Hamon, just having like what's it called? The where is he? Where is he? Yeah, there you go. Just having the Hamon and the Orchestrator on the field and just like turning these guys into Colossus is like broken because Kiltoon doesn't have a way to like out these guys, especially because like you make him with actual thunders. So if they go like follow the virtual try to pop him, you just like protect him with this by banishing them. And many other decks also they need to like search in order to like be able to like play the game. And the other thing about Colossus is that because he's a fusion, he actually like boosts one of our link monsters that we play later. I'll show you soon. And then for our link monsters, we play Anima because we play a level 1 Fiend, and then we play Crush Sheep, and that's where like the Colossus comes from, folks. What usually happens is that you summon a Thunder in the Crush Sheep zone, and then you tribute it for the Colossus, and then the Crush Sheep will trigger and revive back one of your guys. And that makes sense so far. And then, I mean, the reason we do this stuff is to go into, you know these guys. You've seen these guys before. You've totally seen these guys before, and yes, we make the Zena, and the Zena will send usually, you know who. We are sending the good old Spell Canceller, and then we're like immediately linking off the Zena and the Protect code to make the Charmer, and then the Charmer will revive these two because they're both a machine. So now you have a Spell Canceller, and because this has 18 attack, we wanted to protect it by battle. So what we do is that we tribute these two for these Chorizo. And the reason we can do that is because the Charmer Link 4, for some reason, it stops you from using these guys as like Link or Fusion material or Synchro material or whatever, but it doesn't stop you from like sending them for the effect of Chorizo. So what Chorizo does is that if your opponent declares an attack, you can just like bounce the guy that attacks, and now your Spell Canceller just like lives.
Yeah, it's like specifically it can still be used as fusion material. What you summon with the Charmer Quartet, it just cannot be used for a fusion summon. And Chorizo is a special summon.
Yeah. Basically, what you said, like, I was like kind of like half asking, but yeah, it's basically what you said because like he sends the material instead of just using it like for like like a fusion summon like Poly, for example. And then for the rest of the extra deck, we played SP because I mean it's a good generic. And then we played some Super Poly targets, so Theseus and Muddragon. I did not play Garura in the main deck because I felt like a lot of decks didn't actually like didn't actually like make boards that like suffered from Garura. But I played Tumitsu in the event, so maybe Garura would have been good there. But I sided the Garura instead. So anytime it was around, I just like sided it in. But this was crazy, and sometimes I feel like KT players don't expect Theseus to be someone, I don't know why, but a lot of KT players, they would just like see that I had Super Bowl and they would still make a board that was like respected, I don't know, Muddragon and like Garura, but didn't respect Theseus, and then they would just get punished. I'm not sure why. It's strange. Maybe I'm just behind or something. And then
yeah, I'm guessing they're just like, hey, I'll lose to Theseus anyway. Let's just make the call out that they don't play it.
That could be the case. Yeah. And then these three mystery sleeves are supposed to be the Fallen Virtuous targets, so Albion and Ecclesia that I have to give back. And this one is supposed to be a Verudras, because yes, this deck can make Verudras very easily, and if you usually have like a hand of like, you know, 2 Hamon and like the search spell, for example, you just like make a Verudras really easy to like insulate the rest of your combo, and then you just like combo off with like the rest of your hand. Yeah. And then for the side deck, I played 2 draw because I added it in my binder, so I put it in. Then Forbidden Crown that Lawrence lent me. Shout out Lawrence. And he only had 1 crown. So I put it in. And then Duster Storm evenly because I don't know. I just hate boards. I want them to die, so I just like put this shit in. Then Callby for going first. Garura to side for like Super Poly. And then because my deck is like a toxic FTK deck, I just played, you know, this shit, and it won me my final round, so it was good. And yeah, that should be the deck. It was a very fun deck, and I probably will try to like mess with it a bit more.
So, any final shoutouts you would like to give?
Shout out to the Darkhold for like helping me build the list. Shout out to Lawrence for helping me build the list with like the stuff from inspired, and now I dismantle this entire list to like give it back to it. And then shout out to Riffraff, who has been like supporting me through like thick and thin. So Riffraff are like the people back at BD Games from the UK. Shout out to like Darkhold Dogs if you don't know them. And then shout out to like Heroes in general. Like it was a great experience. Like I didn't do well at the main event, but the side event was like really fun. And shout out to the guy that bought my June Pride guy. I forgot his name, but like shout out to him for buying it.
Yeah, I also forgot his name, but yeah, like you know who you are.
Yeah, you know you're right. And also like a shout out to what's it called? Shout out to Uriah, because apparently like I heard that if you play against the new chess deck, he gets like 1,000 attack, 10,000 attack or something. But yeah, that was it.
Yep. Okay. Bye.
Bye bye.